Premiumization. That's the term that is summarizing a retail trend that is impossible to ignore. Many brands that once were considered fast fashion are now giving a feeling of premium, either for the way the stores are now designed or the range of products, materials, and collabs, and even services or hangout areas. This is happening for a few reasons, like the need to increase brand perceived value when competitors like Shein or Temu are growing significantly, as well as preparing for price increases, giving supply chain pressure or adaptability to sustainable practices. In today's OFFBounds Trends episode, I'm joined by Jack Stratten, who is a retail expert and runs Insider Trends. We will explore how premiumization is transforming the way we see the industry, not only in fashion, but also furniture, grocery, and basically all retail segments. And especially what may happen to brands that belong to this mid-market category that will now have to compete with giants like Zara, H&M, or IKEA. Join us as we walk you through what is happening in retail. Here's Paula Macaggi, and this is episode 48 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. In 2024, Zara opened its second largest store in the world in a historical building in Lisbon. And the store is a reference on how the brand wants to be perceived moving forward. H&M announced its rebrand in September this year, opening its new flagship store in Stockholm, showing a different H&M that we are used to. Similar initiatives are being put into practice by brands like Banana Republic, Uniqlo, the American grocer Wegmans, IKEA, and many others. I feel that in 2023, brands were testing it out, and 2024, they went full on into becoming more premium. But what is this? What is premiumization? I invited Jack Stratten, who is a good friend and has probably the coolest job ever. He travels around the world looking at shops, at shoppers, and spotting trends in the industry. That's why he's the head of trends at Insider Trends, a consultancy business based in London.
Okay, so for premiumization, the way I talk about is something we at Insider Trends have been tracking for a while. And what, to me, it is where really big mass market, normally global brands, who generally speaking have catered to kind of a lower disposable income customer. And that's been their focus, that's been how they've built their business. So H&M, Primark type businesses are the classic examples. We're seeing that they are really, in very clear ways, premiumizing their offer, especially through stores, but also through brand, through product, through everything they're doing online. And that's starting to go hand in hand with charging more premium prices. So to us, premiumization is essentially a kind of scaling up of the brand offer, the store offer, the product offer, partly in order to maybe reach, a different kind of customer. But I think there's something bigger going on as well. I think it's partly reaching that customer, but it's also about maybe preparing for a future where brands are going to have to charge more for products because supply chains have to build in higher costs. And actually, if we look at maybe sustainability, actually, this is the only meaningful way of preparing for a future where we have to reduce emissions. We have to charge more for products to allow us to make maybe better products, fewer products. And so, in a sense, that's what premiumization is to me. It's building businesses that can charge more for products because these companies like H&M have made it look like, we can justify this higher price because we're not just offering cheap products, we're offering a premium offering overall.
Jack is bringing a super valid point here. When we are talking about brand strategy, we have, in very simple way of putting it, 3 factors: cost, price, and perceived value. Cost, as the name says, is the cost of bringing a product to market and selling it. Price is how much you are charging for it. And the difference between price and cost is what we'll be looking at, which is the margin. Some retailers are in the business of increasing their margin by pushing costs down, like Atacadão that we talked about 2 episodes ago. Some other brands and retailers are in the business of increasing their perceived value so they can charge more. The easiest example of brands that are in the business of high perceived value are luxury brands. They do it by differentiating on product quality, impeccable customer experience, scarcity, and so on. When brands increase their perceived value, they make the customer feel their brand is special, and usually price follows. In these last few years, while we were living in inflationary times, some brands simply increase prices. And if customers don't see the value for that price increase, they just shift the preference to other brands or products. So now let's remember that Shein, which is a Chinese marketplace that was responsible for a new category in retail called ultra fast fashion, they grew exponentially during the pandemic, offering products similar to Zara or H&M at a much lower price, delivered to people's home, didn't even have to go to a store. How could these brands like Zara, H&M, and other fast fashion could compete?
I'm 99% sure that the reason businesses like H&M and like Zara are premiumizing is that they realize they can't join the race to the bottom that is Shein and Temu. They are about market share primarily, right? They're charging prices for products where they don't really even need to be profitable, or in many cases probably aren't. So if you're H&M and Zara, businesses, traditional businesses with traditional costs, loads of stores all around the world, you can't join that race to the bottom. You can't. So to me, premiumization is entirely logical. It's kind of going, well, so that we don't just see a slightly more expensive version of Shein or Temu, like cheap products, but that aren't as cheap as them, well, we're going to lose that battle. So instead, they're kind of trying to join a different battle. They're saying, right, let's premiumize, let's totally move our businesses away from that end of the market, focus on quality, make our store environments really lovely, and try to say to the customer, look, yes, we're more expensive than those businesses, but you get a lot more from us. And actually, we're a different kind of a business.
There was a time when we used to think that it would be impossible to compete with Amazon. And so the term "what Amazon can do" was created, which really was about the store experience, sales associate, and omnichannel. In the last few years, we learned that it would be really hard to compete with Chinese marketplaces. So now Premiumization was born as a response to what Shein can do. But how are brands making it happen?
Firstly, it's the buildings that they're taking on in the first place. For me, Uniqlo have been one of the great inspirations of this. So Uniqlo, over the years, if you look at their flagships in Paris, Madrid, Barcelona, and actually in London as well, so they have a new space at Cold Drops Yard, but also the one in Covent Garden. They're kind of actively taking on challenging buildings, listed buildings, so buildings that are architecturally incredible, and buildings that you wouldn't associate with a fast fashion brand. When we think about fast fashion brands, we just think white boxes, don't we, in shopping centres, but equally kind of Oxford Street type spaces where, each space architecturally is the same as the next. It's a white box and you stick all your product in, and the goal is almost how much product can we fit in there, how many SKUs can we get in there, sell as much product as we can, sales per square foot, all the traditional stuff. Uniqlo are starting to take on spaces like the one in the Marais or in Opera in Paris. I mean, they are incredible spaces. They put the product in and they put the Uniqlo storytelling in, the great Uniqlo merchandising, all those kinds of visual aesthetics that are amazing. But within these amazing old buildings, and they don't alter the old buildings, they basically go, we're just going to put our offering side by side with these beautiful old buildings. And it's recognizing that even that act in and of itself feels incredibly premium, because immediately they're saying to the customer, where those products are set against all this beautiful history, immediately you feel a sense of, you can't feel anything other than a sense of kind of premium.
And Jack is right. In one of my trips to London this year, I had the pleasure of visiting Uniqlo's store at Regent Street. And I can confirm that they did an impressive job in that building, incorporating an old barber shop into their Uniqlo program, where they do the repairing services. I have to say, it's stunning and beautiful and amazing how they figured out a way to keep the history in store.
And the other point is that's very much a digital play as well, because of course Uniqlo, even Primark, when they're opening beautiful stores in these spaces, we've probably seen them again, places like Madrid and Milan. Zara for sure are doing the same thing in similar locations. When they're opening stores in these beautiful buildings, that creates an enormous amount of digital content, and all of those images, all those videos, all that content, it really feels different, because rather than the classic white box, all of a sudden you're looking at Baroque architecture and you're looking at buildings that are hundreds of years old.
And I really want to talk about Zara's new store that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, which opened in a traditional and busy area of Lisbon in September. And it was probably my favorite store visit of 2024. Across its 4 floors, you can find products divided on categories from fashion to home to perfume. The ceilings have traditional art, and even an elevator from many years ago is there between products and sessions. The store not only gives this vibe that you're entering a museum, but also this minimalistic, modern, and sophisticated feeling. It's like a fusion between the past and the future, as they also offer private cabins of self-checkout using RFID. And it even became one of the attractions of the city. So when tourists are in Lisbon, they go there, can even have a coffee while they're shopping. Which, by the way, it is a luxury trend to have coffee shops in stores now. You probably know that Tiffany has one at their Fifth Avenue store, and now to have Zara announce that they will increase the rollout of cafes in their stores around the world is very impressive. They even announced they are creating coffee shops, not inside the stores, but just their brand. That's another brand equity exercise. But there's more than just architecture and coffee shops.
All those brands are, I'm noticing in stores, starting to reduce the number of products in the store. That is always a necessary step in premiumizing a store environment, right? We know that a luxury brand has very little product in a store. So, you're drawn to maybe the member of staff, and it's more an experience of speaking to that member of staff, learning about the brand, the products. It's a totally different experience to online. It's that maybe you see a few products, but actually it's about, a conversation, high-end service and experiences. So reducing the amount of product in a store is a really fundamental component of premiumizing a store environment. And again, a lot of those fashion brands are doing that. You notice even IKEA are doing it, actually. If you think of them as fast furniture, IKEA are doing it in city centre formats, right? Less product becomes a more welcoming environment, and actually a slightly higher end environment. So that would be the other thing. So you've got, kind of the buildings themselves, less product, but then also really paying attention to the kind of in-store strategies that we associate with more premium brands. So even if you look at maybe not luxury brands, but more kind of mid-market brands in fashion. So Arket would be a great example. Arket stores will have a bit less product, but also they just pay a bit more attention to visual merchandising. They pay a bit more attention to color coding, to really thinking, how does each corner of this store look from wherever you're standing? A hallmark of fast fashion brands is actually there isn't really budget from maybe a staff point of view to pay attention to stuff like that. They won't worry about having, a merchandiser who's constantly going around the store making sure everything looks beautiful. But suddenly that's happening in these Zara stores and these H&M stores, even in Primarks. So the merchandising and the kind of color coding visually just looks good. And I think that's smart, because they're also realizing it's about how that stuff shows up online, right?
And I have to say that it's becoming pretty difficult to differentiate fast fashion campaigns from luxury campaigns. Although there are claims that products are of better quality, many people are saying they aren't really. Some TikTokers are even calling it deluxe washing. And one of the implications of these trends are really around what will happen to mid-market brands if the ones we used to call fast fashion are now providing greater experience with similar products and much lower prices.
Well, this is one of, to me, the fascinating things we're going to see in 2025 beyond. That's such a good question, Paula, is what happens to those mid-market brands where H&M, Zara, Uniqlo are already there and moving towards them. And suddenly they look similar to these premium brands, but they're quite a lot more expensive. So look, to put it frankly, COS is struggling a little. And partly why COS will continue to struggle, in my opinion, is that suddenly COS doesn't look so elevated from a H&M store, from a Uniqlo store. The prices are certainly elevated, they're much more expensive. But where COS really stood out as being like this great mid-market offer, more expensive clothing, better merchandise, more beautiful stores, less product. Certainly when fast fashion brands are kind of taking some of their cues, you make a really good point. Suddenly their proposition is less distinct. So to answer the question, what happens with them, I don't think we totally know. I think some of them inevitably will probably try to scale up as well to become even more premium. But I think some of those brands are going to find it challenging. When you have a brand like H&M that brings with it lots of lower disposable income customers, also start to take away some of their mid-market customers.
And another question that I want to add here that we don't really have the answers yet is what will happen with these huge fashion groups? COS, that Jack mentioned, is part of H&M Group, and suddenly they will have to compete with each other. Same for Massimo Dutti, which is the more expensive sister of Zara and belongs to the same group. Will they have to elevate their stores and offerings to become more premium than the new concept of the group? And this is another point to look at in 2025. Now, retail isn't only about fashion, and multiple segments of our industry are evolving with this trend.
When I was recently in New York, that Wegmans is a really good example of this. Because Wegmans, and look, this isn't the only store that's doing this, but I was told by a couple of people who know Wegmans much better than me that they've been kind of really updating the look and feel of lots of their stores, doing more food to go, and trying to create almost a European deli feel in a lot of their supermarkets. But the genius of what they're doing, and I think why they're doing it really successfully, and there's the one that I saw as the one that lots of people talk about, which is the Flatiron Midtown Wegmans. It's really, really premium, but it's way more affordable than a Whole Foods. So basically, you're going into what feels like Whole Foods for half the price. That is super smart, and I think lots of grocery businesses in the US, UK, probably, it's a bit different in Europe because the average supermarket, I think, feels much more high-end. But if you look at something like Wegmans, I think they're playing in the same way that a lot of these mass-market fashion brands are. They're saying, if we can just make our offering feel more premium, look more premium, make it a bit more service-oriented, make the stores really pleasant to walk around, great food to go offers, make it feel really kind of global and inviting, range of services, but be still pretty affordable, actually, especially compared to Whole Foods and really high-end little delis and stuff that you might get in cities like New York, Chicago, whatever. That is a really great chunk of the market, right? Especially in inflationary times, everyone's still worried about what they can afford. I was in Wegmans thinking, my God, yeah, the food to go is incredible. And it was, a really nice, freshly prepared salad was half the price of what it would be in Whole Foods. It's just a win-win, I think. Super smart.
And let's remember that even Walmart, that has always been a push cost down type of retailer, realized that they can offer better convenience and experiences to increase perceived value. And therefore, they are attracting more affluent customers. If you see the results, it's there. They're doing something right. If you go to New York for NRF in January, I invite you to visit Banana Republic's new store in Soho, which is a wonderful place that feels very premium, merging their home and fashion offerings. It even made me buy from them again. This trend is a reflection of the importance of this store and how it makes us consumers feel, and why they are the reason bookstores continue to open regardless of the convenience of buying on Amazon. Premiumization is a trend that is here to stay, and as the brands we mentioned in today's episode will accelerate their new premium rollout in 2025, it is expected that soon enough, these experiences won't be a surprise to consumers anymore, especially because these are super popular brands. That means these premium offerings coming from H&M, Zara, IKEA, Wegmans will soon be the new normal, and the brands that don't follow it will soon be very boring. Is your brand ready to be premiumized? Let me know what are your thoughts in the comments or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to know your take. See you next Tuesday.